space. Got it. Ooh, it works great.
Oh, look at, all right. We're both in outer space. I love it. It's fun.
It looks cool.
Yeah, I love it. It's good. Okay, we are live for Goddess Vibrations. Welcome everyone live and those catching the replay. We are talking about breaking the addiction of fast food spirituality, or looking at spiritual bypassing. So in honor of our topic, Kirti and I decided to start this broadcast from outer space. So we are way up there, ascended past our earthly bodies, looking down on this crazy planet called Earth.
and everything that's happening on it now.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of this stuff. I'm moving my little screens around here, so don't mind me. But for those of you who have been here before, you know Kirti, and she's a sensuality healer. She's a coach. She does a lot of things. She's a dancer. She leads some really incredible full and new moon rituals. So I sent out in our show promo. So if you're on my newsletter, you saw a little link to sign up for that, for her online offerings. And also she does, if you're local, she does you're doing something for creative artists coming.
Yeah,
is it next
that's right. Every new moon, for folks who can get to San Diego, every new moon, we have partnered up with the Village Restaurant, and we are doing ritual and dinner for creativity consciousness. Yeah, so we'll be painting and doing sensuality with Tribe, talking about sovereignty, music, theater, storytelling, just really sparking our creative muse, and getting into your who you really are.
Oh man, that is so on time with Uranus both Uranus and Taurus, and the Libra, the North Node moving into Taurus, because we're supposed to be moving into this like creative, pleasure seeking, simplicity streak. So I think that's a great offering to the planet right now, is to help people remember their creativity and their playfulness and just enhance that, because I've been told by some astrologers that this period that we're moving into this spring is kind of like the beginning of some sort of renaissance, kind of like after the Spanish flu and all that stuff, like people, and then after like times of civil unrest and all of that, we had the Roaring 20s. So it's another one of those creative births.
I didn't die, I'm alive.
Yeah, exactly. So that's apparently what we're moving. A lot of
babies get born during that time.
Oh yeah, I think so. That's a good point. All of a sudden,
that's what I'd be doing.
6-year-olds are going to be fertile.
Yeah. I'd be like, how am I going to use this physical form in the best way possible?
Well, okay, so that's what our topic is about, right? It's like, so it's about how to be in touch with your everlasting spiritual self. In like, here we are transported up to the stars right now to talk astrology and to talk soul wisdom. And that's super important, but it's also really, really, really important to remember that we're in a body. You're Virgo, I'm a Taurus. We understand like being grounded, the importance of the mundane, the importance of doing things daily, of being a steward for your planet, for your earth, for your family, for your home, for your space. I mean, if anybody ever walks into your house, it's like a living altar, in every corner. It's really very intentional space. And I feel like it is so trendy along, there's so many good things. There's so many good things with the awareness of spirituality and the awareness of mental health, but there's pop psychology and pop spirituality, and it's not always very accurate. And I know we've had shows before about, spiritual bypassing, or kind of what I like to call, what we've talked about before, is like cultural appropriation of spirituality, of sexuality, of these things where you're just taking these money shots, or these like really fancy fun parts of anything, and then making a whole thing of that, and instead of really understanding where it comes from. And right. So whether we're talking about smoking weed, or we're talking about mushroom journeys, or we're talking about ayahuasca, or we're talking about past life regression, or we're talking, which is something that I offer and lead. It's like, how often do you really need to be doing that? I'm not doing past life regressions every day. I don't think that would serve me. You know
Wow,
what I
I
mean?
can't even imagine.
Yeah, you need some time to like process and integrate and download that. And right now, even my group ones, I usually only tend to offer them about twice a year. I might end up doing, yeah, and I might end up doing that more, but you know, as a therapist, as a traditionally trained therapist, it's like, I know that just talking all day isn't it either, but we have to have the sacred balance of these, of coming up and looking down on the planet in our earthly outsider existence, and this, you know, being in a body. And I often say to people when I'm doing hypnosis sessions that the state of hypnosis, which is kind of the theta brainwave state, what a lot of people experience it, and maybe you experienced this, Kirti, when you were doing the past life regression workshop too, is that at first you kind of have this feeling of being in a body and feeling everything that I'm saying going through your body, but then you also have this feeling of being outside of your body and observing yourself. And it's sort of this dual awareness where you might pop back and forth between these two perspectives. And that's a really helpful place to be, because it's kind of a balance of both. And then as you go deeper into hypnosis, then you kind of just spiral off wherever you're supposed to go, and you're hearing my voice somewhere, but you don't exactly tune into it. You just kind of go. And so many people have told me that during the regressions and during hypnosis, they could tell what I was going to say right before I said it, you know, and that has been shown. And I think you said that to me at one time, I think the first time we did it, or I think somebody did. But in regression, it wouldn't be surprising to me if it was you, because you always speak what I'm thinking anyway. That's just a normal everyday occurrence. Not,
I feel that way in your regression stuff. It's like, it feels like I see the wave coming before it comes through you or something. I don't know.
That's exactly
like I hear you saying it and then you say it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I guess there's been some research studies on that, and that participants, you know, their brainwaves synchronize. And so they actually do hear the words before they're spoken, because you're already tuning into the energy, right? So that stuff is really cool. It's really cool to know that stuff. But also, you know, we still have to brush our teeth and poop. And somebody actually said to me, it was a really funny analogy. I hadn't really thought about this before, but they were talking about like codependency, or how we want to take other people's pain away. Like we want to caretake for them so much. He's like, have you ever tried to poop for somebody? It's like, it doesn't work. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is perfect.
Yeah, my mom used to say that, make that joke. She'd be like, go pee for me. I'm like, Mom, I was a kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The pressure to do that. You feel all the constipation, but you just can't do it for them, right? Yeah, that's codependency, right? So that's a good analogy. So, you know, just thinking about that sort of thing. But anyway, okay, so since we're here in outer space, why don't we what's
pulling something up that's gonna kind of help, but it helps kind of just understand these ideas of what we're calling, I suppose, the spiritual bypass, as well as fast food spirituality, you know, where you can literally, you know, in a matter of 30 days, you know, accomplish anything fully. And feel able to perhaps turn around and teach it.
Oh yeah, I know that's a big
that's like coming up a lot right now. So many of the people and the mentors I'm talking to are dealing with this dynamic. So
oh, for sure. I just talked to a real one today, and you know, she's really interesting. She's going to be on the show soon. And you know, same thing. It's just like, but what I'm starting to realize is, while I was getting really annoyed with it, especially like in 2020, 2021, now I'm learning I've been internally transforming my whole thing and way I show up in the world. But it's what it just means is that people that actually have done the deep work have to be more visible. And so it's our
and I think it shows that there's also, for those of us who are above the earth looking down, you know, it helps. It also shows that there's a huge demand and there's a huge desire to do spiritual work right now. But when you have that combined with a patriarchal capitalistic setup, you're going to get this fast food spirituality.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's it right there. I mean, I was just reading this thing about Uranus and Aries. So Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, 7 plus almost 8 years before that was in Aries. And it's the innovation, it's radical, it's rebellion. It's like not doing the deep work. It's like,
yeah,
boom, we're ready. Like, and what did that bring about? It brought up like Instagram pages and Twitter profiles where you could create your own brand. And the woman who's writing this article, she's like, back in the day, the only way I would have had the kind of platform that I have as an entrepreneur is if I had a TV show, or I was like a famous author, or I had to really get seen, like do the work to be seen. And then all of a sudden something like, social media comes around and anybody can have their little corner of the universe, and whatever their shtick is that gets the followers and the likes, and they learn the algorithm game and the tech, overlords game. Boom, they've got a platform of 1 million, 2 million, whatever. And it might be very influential to people, which is cool in its own right. But what is the quality of information, right? And then now you see like so many people, I keep hearing this term thrown around of you I think you know what it is. It's mass something psychosis.
Psychosis?
I can't remember, but it's a new buzzword.
Mass psychosis?
Mass something psychosis.
Oh yeah, that came out in the Dr. Malone's.
Yeah. So now I've heard people talking about this a lot, and that's been going on for a long time, as long as social media has been around. And these like TikTok dances and all the things, I mean, they're fun to watch, but after 8 times of seeing somebody do, they're slightly different.
Oh, I find that algorithm to me of it's like that's a code, right? It's kind of like the same code of mantra. And mantra means man is mind, tra is tool or instrument, you could say, of the divine. So it's like using the mind as an instrument of the divine. We chant certain sounds and certain words and intentions, right? And we chant them and we make the sounds and we make them in our minds and our bodies and we internalize them. And then before we know it, we're starting to change things, right? We're walking with a different field of energy and intention, because energy follows thought. So what do you feel like the TikTok vibration is? It's the same code. Anytime there's repetition, right?
Yeah.
So how many times does it repeat, right? Anytime there's repetition.
Kindergarten, nursery rhymes, all these things, there's story and repetition to help us remember things that are helpful. It's helpful to remember ABCs. It's helpful to remember multiplication tables. Speaking of peeing, like I have social peeing phobia, and if you got pressure, you're in a line or whatever, I do the multiplication tables just to relax, so I'm not thinking about peeing, right? Still useful. They taught me that in grade school. But I also think, if we're not, so there's science behind it and logic. And then I also think that if you think about like creativity, there's always leaders. Like you're a leader, you're a creative person. People are always copying you. They're always following you because you just are this wellspring of creativity. But, a true creative, it's like once everybody starts to do it, they're already on something else. Like they are like, okay, that's not so fun anymore. And it's not, it's not a bad thing to have the masses following you and enjoying in the fun and enjoying in the exploration of a certain thing. But when that thing is used for nefarious reasons or to control or dominate a society without them really knowing about it, that's that mass kind of psychosis or mass, I would say even hypnosis, because I mean, marketing and advertisement is kind of nefarious. They have an agenda and it's not an agenda necessarily for the people. It's an agenda primarily for profits. And so, is it okay to profit off of helping people? Absolutely. But is it okay to put profits ahead of what's really good for the people? I have a hard time with that. I have a really hard time with that.
Yeah, like what it's about worth and value at that point. And what do we truly value as abundant and ever evolving? But what's interesting is the very things that that are the producers on this planet, and that are the cultivators and the ones who keep it fresh, are oftentimes, they are the black sheep, right? They're the ones that are willing to question, and they're willing to think outside. And those people who are really living that lifestyle know that there is no such thing as the fast food attitude. And they know that really, really clearly, that seeing that is a sign of the patriarchy and this penetrative marketing that you're talking about.
Penetrative, which can fuck you over sometimes. And it's penetrative.
Leave you hanging, ghost your ass.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that too. Everything today has been a synchronicity. I was meeting with my team, one of my networking groups from a nutritional company, and who I met through Dr. Christiane Northrup. And then as soon as I hung up, I was on the beach today as I joined this meeting. And as soon as I hung up, another friend texted me and said that Dr. Chris Northrup was going to be on the beach, and that same beach in Carlsbad today, to do like a little beach walk and meditation and talk. And I was like, wow, that's really cool, because she's from Maine,
Yeah.
And and then it just so happened that it was right after I dropped my daughter off to dance. So I was going to try to
so cool.
Yeah. So I got to go, but she said, speaking of black sheep, she's like, in my next lifetime, I just, one of my mentors used to say, I want to come back as like a bakery owner who smokes cigarettes. And she's like, and now I know why, because I've always been like 20 years ahead of the times, and it's not been comfortable. It's not been a comfortable life for me. And I can attest to that because I've been following her work for 20 years, so the stuff that she was writing about 20 years ago, that people were telling her she was a witch, she was crazy, she was,
yeah, there's so much judgment against her.
Yeah, but if you read her books from 20 years ago, it's all over Instagram now. It's it's like the pop, like it's popular, it's trending, and now she's being blasted for what she's saying now,
Right.
So it's hard when you're it's hard when you can see ahead of the
yeah and I think spiritual bypassing is it's the desire to want to be in the light, or be just like, okay, like we're all love and it's all about consciousness, and it really does have a beautiful intention. However, what tends to happen is we forget that, anytime we're in the light, there's going to be a shadow.
Yeah. Well, I remember when so this is so funny. I think back to when I first moved to Carlsbad, back in like 2014, and I'm integrating to my new culture up here. And one of the first things I learned is they're like, yeah, there's a big like polyamorous yoga community up here. I'm like, there is? Like, really? Okay, that's interesting. I'm really curious to learn.
Yeah.
This lifestyle. Okay. And then the next week I meet with a substance abuse facility. I was thinking about networking or doing some work with them. And they're like, yeah, have you heard about ayahuasca? It's healing these like heroin addictions and healing all these, these major addictions. And I was like, interesting. And I had never heard of ayahuasca before then, so I'm like, and I still to this day have not done it, not opposed, but it just sounds like a very, intense experience. And I feel like I have a lot of intense experiences just living my daily life. So I wonder if I need to, how much I need to invite more in, because I feel like the universe really has already like done a really great job of serving them to me as I sit here minding my own business. But yeah, so I learned about these things. And by the way, I just learned too, I have some kind of placement in my astrological chart where this astrologer said, well, it's a good thing you've never done heroin, because you would still be doing it today. And I was like, oh shoot, okay, all right, good thing. That's good to know. So apparently I have quite the addictive personality. But with ayahuasca, I don't think it's the drug, it's not the plant medicine, I don't think it's the the nature speaking to you that heals the addiction, I think it is the spiritual awareness. It's the altered perception. Anytime we have altered perception, again, whether it's ayahuasca, it's weed, it's like a past life regression, you just had this amazing orgasm, like whatever it is that gives you this altered perception is going to give you this different perspective. And if we're constantly seeking this elevated, altered perspective, where are we? We're off all over the place. But when do you come back down and like integrate it and ground down and savor all of the little bits of escalating up to that peak experience and coming back down from that peak experience? And then the next day getting a warm glow because you're feeling and thinking about that peak experience again. And I remember having a colleague tell me when I first started as a trainee, as a therapist, and she was saying, in her work in substance abuse, she realized the only thing that got people to give up the substance was having something more important in their life. And oftentimes that's a spiritual thing. It might be being a parent or somebody that you love, you fall in love and it's this intense love, or it could be a job or a career or a calling, right? And that thing becomes more important than the substance. And that seems to be the only thing that gets people to drop the substance. And I feel like everybody knows cigarettes are not good for you. I think everybody knows alcohol is really not a good thing for you in general, you know, so it's like people can latch on to these other experiences, things.
Well, as a society, I feel like that's what we are also nurturing too, is that mentality of like numbing out. You know, just like numbing out and not feeling, or also a lot of these very aspects of fast food spirituality and spiritual bypassing. It's not necessarily the individuals or the younger generation or the older generation or the people who are, you know, perhaps out of work now because of the past 2 years and they're like, shit, I can be a coach. You know what I'm saying? Let me just get this certification and I'll like coach people online, you know. But it's really about this concept and this idea. And I would like to hear even your perspective because you're in that science world and that academia world. You've been quite in it, and you know, the PhD shit, that's a big deal, right? Like you're
not in it at this moment, but I was just had the thought today, like, thank God, because there's a lot of corruption there too. I don't even know if I want to be.
I think it would be so
right
stressful.
Now. I'll wait until they clean up their act and then finish my dissertation. I would be, if I would make it through at this point.
Exactly. So it's this idea. So I've heard that basically, like my experience in hospitals, right? I've been in hospitals quite a bit, and I've supported people in hospitals a lot. And this idea of bedside manner, you know, like for the nurses and the nurse practitioners that come in, and you know, of course they're managing so much. However, it's like this assumption that just because you're a nurse, like you're going to have bedside manner. But the truth is, like, I've had plenty of experiences where it's very poor bedside manner in hospitals, and where myself or family members are not really taken care of, like in a way of somebody who's not feeling well and needs to feel better, or the way you need to be nurtured to feel better. We all know how that feels, like what you want and need, and not getting that in a hospital. And it's like the assumption is, well, if you're a nurse, or if you're a nurse practitioner, or if you're in the healthcare field, you're going to be all about wellness too, and you're going to know how to have bedside manner. And it's like, no, that's not the case. But what's interesting is that nurse is going to probably be able to have way more access and launch all these programs and be able to go teach places and do things based off that degree, versus the person who's like lived the life and done it and tried to live outside of that. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when we talk about this fast food attitude. It's like this idea that if you follow this way, you know, you're going to get what you need. And that's not really the people or the citizens. I really believe it's the setup of the structure of the system that really harnesses, and I mean, it nurtures that. Shofar was telling me that like doctors, like surgeons, can get, there are certain things where they can go to a thing, do a quick training and get acupuncture needles.
Oh yeah.
Like, to me, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, what makes you think that you have the wisdom of somebody who is a acupuncture practitioner who understands the meridians and the points, right? And has that presencing and that energy level that is not taught in Western medicine. Western medicine is taught to cut. That is so different. Like a surgeon, what a surgeon is doing and what a acupuncturist's goal and vision is doing is different. They are coming from two different lineages.
Yep.
And so what's happening and what it feels like is it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, insurance covers your massage or your massage. It's like all these wellness pieces. And I really believe it started with the HMOs. This whole concept of sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry, not sorry. I'm so like, I do so many different interviews and I'm teaching. I'm like, oh, shoot. I forgot. I had to remember where I was. Fuck.
Hallelujah.
But it's like, so it's that kind of a thing where we think we know it enough to sell it.
Yeah.
We think we know it. Something's happening where within this, perhaps it's a Western educational paradigm, perhaps it's just a patriarchal thing when it's happening all over the world in all countries, but I can just speak to it for me. But it's almost like, oh, well, if I just do this, this, and this, like now I can teach it. And it's not about what you're talking about, that, coming down to earth and integrating and being like, okay, what is it here? Like really actually doing the work and showing up to the practice. And so I have a couple of things, and I thought that you would enjoy this. So these are things that I work through with clients, common fast food attitude, concepts and common spiritual, but really, really, you can see this as a wounded masculine dynamic, right?
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to speak to your last point though, because
do it.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important point. And just, with my start of my career really being in social work and interfacing a lot with CPS workers, investigators, police officers, those folks I saw really kind, like you talk about bedside manner, kind, giving, just like angels in uniform. And then I saw horrible, like power and control, power trip folks. And I would like to say it's probably 50-50. Like it was, you just didn't know who you were going to get. And I'm like, oh my gosh, to be in a position where you're vulnerable, like you're now in the system, a victim of a crime in a child abuse report system, in a hospital, like you're saying, or in a jail,
even a school. I mean,
yeah, in school
is very similar.
Yeah, you're now in a vulnerable point, and all you have is like a hope that, and trust in these, a good versus evil person. And then, we get these education. You and I both have master's degrees. We've been through the educational system. We've both worked in the educational system even after that. And there's something to be said for the years and the dedication, the blood, sweat, and tears, and the consistency and longevity of getting that degree. But I don't know about you, when I finished my master's degree, I'm like, I still not really qualified to do much of anything. It wasn't until I started doing the clinical hours and just really on the job, moving through some really complex shit that I could not have figured out on my own. And that's why we had to have supervised hours, and I worked in a team, and thank goodness, for all of that.
Yes.
That's where I learned my shit, and so I think, like, yeah, you could be somebody that is very nurturing and is coach-like, and those, or, maybe like me, I was the therapist between my parents my whole life. So that kind of primed me. So you could be that person in your family, and then you have a natural affinity toward these careers, which is definitely going to help you, but it doesn't, that's still not enough, right? You still have to go, you have to have these licensing boards. And one of the things that I was talking about with this other woman who's going to be on the podcast is that in the spiritual community, there's no checks and balances. Like there's no board of ethics. There's no governing body. Maybe there will be, and maybe, you know, that could even be corrupt, and so maybe it's not a good thing either, but it is still like consumer beware. And so we each have to be able to feel out who is authentic, who has really done the work, what's their story, what's their background, how long have they been practicing, what are their clients saying, you know, all that. And you can be in practice for only a year or two and still be really good, but there's just certain things that you're not going to be able to have navigated because you haven't navigated them yet. And I think there's a balance between the two. You know, there's a balance between not leaning all on your education and not leaning all on, you know, this real world experience without having that kind of, what is it, accountability or
for me, it's the word keeps coming up is like building the wisdom around it, like integrating your experiences, like whatever they are, educational, like, you know, if you've spent time in school getting a master's and a PhD, and like, I totally relate to what you're saying. You went on to get a PhD. I went and got another master's. It was like, okay, now I know what I really want to do. And it's like, okay, that's like 10 years. That's also building wisdom. Like what I liked about the master's was like, I had my feet on the ground still with experience, and I was still doing that. And what PhDs offers, right? You can get really deep into research, and even in spiritual work or whatever work you're doing. And really, what are we calling spiritual work is really a way of living life.
Yeah.
But it's about getting into the things that might be feeling like they're in the way of you living your life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is something happening right now, even more than ever. And perhaps it's because we're on the precipice of this renaissance that you're talking of. And so in that, we need kind of this real nice clarity, because if you look at the Harlem Renaissance, it's no joke. Like, you better be able to bring it. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be. So we maybe need some kind of a natural filtration of sorts. I mean, might be really good, but I think that you need wisdom. You need to build that experience. And anybody who's worked with people or who is in any kind of teaching position or instructional position or coaching position just knows you get it from, you got to get your chops, you know? And I think that we live unfortunately, when that's combined with the need to pay the bills, and like what you said, we are human and we have to like live our lives and do these things, and it's like, okay, so this is why in a lot of indigenous cultures, you know, those who held this who stepped into this role, let's say, a lot of times it wasn't for financial means per se, because the community took care of them.
Yeah, they didn't have to worry about it.
They could be, you know, be of service to the community and a full service, and really provide the healing and the guidance that people perhaps needed. But we are not necessarily living in that space.
I think like what you said with capitalism, it's like these spiritual healers are learning they have to accept money, and like good money, for their work. And that's foreign to them because they probably have multiple embodiments of being the shaman or healer out in the woods and being taken care of. I mean, that was my past life that I just recently went back to too. And so that's good in this modern day and age, that healers and spiritual people learn to accept money because of the system and the setup that we're in right now. But then it's almost like then other more predatory capitalists are like, oh, there's a market for that. Oh, I can be that then, you know? And so it goes back to like being honest about where you're at. When I was a 21-year-old going into homes where there had just been a child abuse report and I was teaching parenting skills, I said to my supervisor, hey, I'm fresh out of college. I'm the oldest of, 4 kids, but I have not been a parent. Who am I to be teaching parenting skills to distrust parents? Like, what? I don't even, like, how? And she's like, you're teaching the philosophy, you're teaching the theory that somebody else came up with, and you're there as a consultant. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. Like, but that obviously I look like I'm about 17. I come into their house. I tell them, I'm not a parent. You would know better than me, but this is what I've learned.
Yes.
From these experts.
Well, and you have to start somewhere. So that being said, you have to start somewhere, and you'll draw in the people, you'll draw in the people for where you're at. And so what really creates this fast food spirituality and this concept and like spiritual bypassing and just like wanting to get to like teaching these lessons and like, I don't know what is the obsession with being like the next guru or the next, Buddha. It's really not in,
right. It's to feel important.
It's just like it feels just that is the energy that is for me. I'm ready to like transmute that and bring it back to like finding that Buddha energy in all of us and realizing that we are all the gurus, bringing light and darkness together. And so this idea of the wounded masculine, that's kind of like, oh, well, I need it now. I don't have time to even get out of my car. I can just go through the drive-through and pick it up. And that's the fast food attitude. It's like that we don't even have the time to eat our meals, let alone cook and prepare and say harvest, fine. But like to even park the car, get out of the car, order, like that is the type of system that we're living in. And so what I would love to do is offer these main concerns that have been brought up by clients. One, because I think that they're like so good and valid. And then two, each one comes with the healing practice. And so I thought that might be fun. What do you think about that?
Sure.
And there's like 5 of them. So, and I think you would probably be able to be like, oh yeah, let me know what you think too. Okay. So the first one, and the idea is, to really get people to get clear on the feeling, because that's really going to help you understand what part of you is like rushing to get something, right? All right. So fast food, hit it and quit it. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. These are all in the same family, right? And this is kind of like the idea that like, I don't really need to connect sexually. Like, I just want it, I just had this one night stand. It means nothing. It's that idea that
release the tension. I just
need to get over my past lover.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, we don't call them. Sorry, it would be like, I just need to get over my ex. And it's like we're rushing to like hit it and quit it, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and we're calling in men and partners and women that are the same attitude. Their masculine is like, all right, I hear you. All right, your wish is my command.
At your service for the next 20 minutes.
So this is an aspect of fast food spirituality too. It's like people who want their answer, like they book the session with you and they're like, why do I still have my problem? Why do I feel crazier? And it's like, oh, because we've just begun, right? But it's the same thing that's happening, just in the idea of healing, or the idea of finding a potential mate, or magnetizing in your optimal career path or job or entrepreneur. We a lot of us have this fast food attitude, hit it and quit it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
I think we all do at times. I mean, I'll be there pulling like 4 cards before I'm like, okay, I'm asking for an answer and you're not giving me an answer. It's like, because I want it right now and I want it to be super clear and knock me over the head. And that's not how it works. And the cards just keep throwing like just trash, like throwing trash my way. I'm like, okay, fine. I get it. Like, put the cards away. The answer is not outside of you.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Put the cards away, breathe.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're all guilty probably of these things from time to time, but it's like, are we eating it every day? Are we supersizing me? That documentary, I'm the guy who ate McDonald's food every day and all the shit that happened to his blood and all that stuff. That's where it gets really dangerous, right? So what do you got?
What would be the healing to that? Yeah. And I would say, like, for me too, like when I'm promoting events and stuff, like I have that fast food attitude. Like once I put it out there and it's out, I'm like, okay, like I want to see it. Like I want it, I just want people there and I want to see that the thing is happening. So yeah. And it's like, so the invitation is to practice allowing. Okay. And what that means is like any little thing, just take a moment and look at it with patience, discernment, and consent. So, for example, Give me an example of something you have a fast food, hit it and quit it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am relationship with.
I think probably most like when I have to make a decision, because I got this Libra rising, and it just
Yeah.
I don't like making decisions, right? I can agonize over decisions. So I think that would be something for me. It's just like, tell me what to do. Just tell me. Like even right now, I'm feeling this past month has been such a trip, and just like whirled me around so much that I'm even confused about what my freaking life purpose is. I thought that was very clear to me, but it feels like as soon as I start making really good progress on something, then I just get, and I'm like in my bed for 3 weeks. I'm like, what on earth? And so now I'm searching kind of frantically the last week or so for answers. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, do I keep doing what I've been doing, or is that path being blocked? So it's like reading with this person, cards over here, like, meditate, go to the beach. No, not that meditation, microcosmic orbit. No, do that one. And it's just like, it's not even just fast food. It's like a fast food binge, I think. It's just like trying to take it all in, right? And see like what's gonna satisfy me. And even honestly, like I was laying in bed for 3 weeks. So I couldn't do anything. And that's still, I still wasn't getting answers. So the starvation didn't really work very well either. But yeah, I would say for me, it's probably like making a decision or an important decision. And again, like you're saying, wanting the answer now rather than waiting as long as it takes.
Yes. So in that situation, you would want to practice allowing, which means allowing yourself to make like what you feel. And also just like practice allowing means you don't have to make a decision right away.
Mm-hmm.
You can just like allow it to come up and say, I'm going to think about that and, marinate on it. And you allow the answer to come through. You don't pressure it to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And you give it time and you trust. All of this is because of a lack of trust, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest piece, right? I mean, shit, we wouldn't, if we trusted and we knew that there was enough for all of us, none of us would have a fast food attitude and try to be like getting something quicker than anybody else, right? If we all just trusted and we knew like, okay, like I got to trust my experience and what I've been through to like offer up my work. So you want to practice allowing, which means not pressuring the decision to be made. And if it is a decision that is a really important decision that must be made and it has a timeline, then you want to reach out to someone to help that you trust, that's going to help you make that decision according to the timeline, but that understands like this dynamic that you're working with, right? So that you're like feeling not pressured. And then also discernment. You want to practice discernment. So discerning who you ask for support, or the reason why discernment is the reason we rush to things is because we don't necessarily trust ourselves in taking times that we're already so much in the mind that there's not enough time to develop the trust in taking the time to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
You want to build discernment, and discernment is like seeing if this like is really good for you, like discerning, like, is it really good to rush through every meal throughout the day and to like pressure people and feel like I'm having to influence people because I need them to get it done quicker than they would like to, right? Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It's just like in and out, done, right? And it lacks connection and it lacks emotion. So the healing for that is we want to start to discern and look around for where we see connection, where we see emotion, and we want to start to move in that direction. So where do you feel connection and emotion in the decisions that you're making? What connects you? What actually makes you feel turned on or alive or excited by the idea? And then consent is the biggest one, because fast food attitude, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, hit it and quit it, all kind of lack a little bit of consent in terms of that connection piece. It's kind of like it doesn't matter what side or from who, but it's getting it done, getting it quick and getting it out. Having it to be dealt with. So what we want to start to do is in the decisions that you're having to make, really dropping into where your consent is at and what feels comfortable for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you start making decisions that feel comfortable, then you're going to want to start to take your time, because you'll start to retrain the body to be like, oh, when I take the time to see what feels comfortable, and when I'm taking the time to allow and not pressure, and when I'm taking the time to discern, you're actually building a whole different relationship with the body, where you're not going to be needing something quick. Something quick is actually not even going to attract you anymore.
Well, because at a certain point, again, like cultural appropriation, the quality just isn't there, and it's
Right.
not even that same form. You know, you think of like a McDonald's hamburger, how much of that is actually beef anymore? It's pink slime, it's fillers, it's, you know, they're putting sawdust and crackers and things like that just to have to grow less food. Let's use, you know, the sawmill down the street has this waste product, but we can put it in our crackers, and, you know, in our bottom line is not, you know, we make more money with less product, and then we charge the same amount, and pretty soon people have gut issues because they've been eating sawdust instead of crackers. You know, like these are the things I think also with fast food attitude is like, or we're talking about sex, we're talking about intimacy, you know, is it, like you said, there's no connection there. You have this feeling of getting a need satiated very temporarily, but almost feeling worse afterwards, because it's like, whoa, what just happened? Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's like, how do you feel after eating that fast food? And also it comes out of being pressured, out of making a rush decision, because you feel like there's not enough time. And right now we could make a lot of, you know, there's a lot of fast food attitude going on with the vaccines, people feeling pressured and rushed, and then, you know, not being clear, or do they really even quite understand what they're doing before they do it, you know?
Yeah,
but
just do it. You got to do it. What's in it? Can I read the label? No. What's wrong with you? You have to do it for.
Are you asking questions?
Everybody's gonna die if you don't do it.
Oh no! How can we forget? You're a horrible citizen. Stop asking questions.
And yeah, a horrible citizen, a horrible person. How dare you?
Yeah. How dare you mistrust these folks who are designing?
2 years later, 77% of the folks going into the hospital are vaccinated.
Yeah, I wish that all news around the planet would broadcast that, because clearly the news that my mother is getting is not saying that. Yeah. All I'm hearing from my mother is like of the fear of me getting it because I am not vaccinated, and so you know.
Well, I already had it. It was the mildest cold I ever had. So, and I understand I got it 2 years in, but I wasn't scared of it at any point. I'm still not scared of it. I made it through. The worst part was not being able to go get my other stuff taken care of, because I had to stay in the house for 3 weeks.
Well, yes. And I feel like that's the one thing that nobody's really talking about, right? Is that to take the wisdom around natural immunity, and those of us who have been practicing health and healthy lifestyles and healthy living for the majority of our lives, or for those of us who have had relationships with the hospital system already, where we have taken the protocols and done the thing and are injured and are now on medication for life, or we are having to navigate certain things and
or spend $25,000 on a corrective surgery because you listened to somebody's treatment plan before looking into it before. You're right. Yeah,
exactly. So this is the thing. That's why now, do you see why discernment and consent really provides power here?
Yeah.
Right. Because what we have to do is we have to heal that dynamic within us. It's happening between our own masculine and feminine.
Yeah. Well, I think it was really powerful. I know you watched the episode last week with Dr. Mario Martinez too. He had so many good, just powerful points.
So good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I love the piece where, I don't know, just the way that he said it, you know, whereas if you're trying to do something or find something, be it yourself, you know? So what are you consenting to, or what are you not consenting to that you're doing to yourself? Like this morning, I've been telling my kids, this is the first day of online school. Our new routine this semester is to get sunlight in our eyes right away in the morning. So I'm going to wake up early. I have your class, of course, at 6 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm going to try to keep with that schedule and go do the bike for my knee in the morning when they're not here. And then when they're here, we go to the beach. It's cold, but it's the sun's out, and we're going to take a beach walk. We live a mile from the beach. It's criminal not to be down there more often.
Yes.
And so we're going to do that. And then we're going to come and log on at 8:45 and 9 a.m. for class. And then they're situated. And it was all hell broke loose this morning trying to get these two out of the house and into a new routine. But what ended up happening is we ended up spending most of the day at the beach, kind of back and forth. And they were, by the afternoon, they were like happy and smiling, but totally different experience. But I was laying there this morning like, oh, I don't want to get up either. I want to keep sleeping. But then I heard, commitment. What has been lacking in my relationships? Commitment, follow through, showing the fuck up, doing the work. Okay, I'm done with that pattern. I'm not attracting that into my field anymore. And so in order to not attract that into my field or any opposition to it, I have to commit to myself. And I said I was going to wake up and do the beach thing in the morning. So my commitment to myself is getting my ass up and getting out the door. Right. And I'm not a morning person either, and doing what I said I was going to do. So yeah, I love that. So with consent, what would that look like if we're consenting to ourselves?
Yeah, it's checking in with the feeling. So whatever is feeling like it needs that fast food attitude, like it's craving that fast food, like we don't want to cut it off and be like, no. It's more like consent means, first of all, let's listen to what that part of us wants to say. Like, why is it feeling the rush? Where is that coming from? And then we want that part of ourselves to actually consent. So whatever's making you feel like, oh, I'm so lost in this decision, I don't know what to do. We want to get clear with, okay, where's that feeling coming from? And sitting with that part of ourselves, then we say, okay, well, what do you consent to? What would make you feel comfortable to help us slow down right now? What do you need to slow down? What do you need to take your time?
Yeah, and I guess it's to be a hell yes before taking a step forward.
I love that. I love that. Some people will say a full-bodied yes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, mind, body, soul. Yeah. Something you call home and tell mom about, Yes, definitely. Should we do one more, or what are you thinking?
Well, yeah. How about like some more examples of like fast food?
Like, some more examples of fast food.
I think people are still going to be, they might still be a little bit confused about this unless they can be like, oh yeah, I totally do that.
Okay.
Or, oh yeah, I know somebody who does that.
Okay. Fast food attitude is, I'm going to take a yoga class over lunch to, release my tension. And you go to the yoga class and you leave the yoga class and you're like, I don't feel any better.
Oh, because they skip Shavasana. That's why. You know those people. They're like, okay, I got my stretch on. Oh, wait, we're going to lay down. I'm out of here. The most important part, the most delicious, the dessert of the whole class that brings it all together. And then they leave. And I'm like, really?
And let's just talk about that, like really, really the amount of Shavasana that the human body needs for the type of being that's having to make it to a lunch workout. Yeah. Like, you need to be probably doing Shavasana 3 times a day, just resting and landing into the body. So that's an example of a fast food attitude. It's like, let me just fit it in there. And it's like, actually, no, yoga is a practice that you really show up for. And it's a quite long, extensive practice. It's the asana is okay, a 60-minute class, but then there's the preparing, there's the shavasana afterwards, and like the unwinding, the integrating, the collecting, like, those who are really practicing that lifestyle, that's really, when it's about. Also, fast food attitude is, we all get off of work by 4 p.m. Work ends at 4 p.m. We have so much work to do. So we're going to work through our lunch.
Never works. Like when you take the break, you're more productive anyway.
And for all the organizational leadership that I've done, not giving people the chance to connect and talk while they eat, it's just, it's like sacrilegious spiritually for me, I've realized. And maybe it's because of the family and the culture that I come from. And even my mom, it's like, she's put me in check if I have my phone out when we eat, because it's like, that is a time of breaking bread. And that's actually a primal connection time. But a fast food attitude doesn't fucking care about that. You get your food in a bag, deep fried. We don't know what the hell is in those nuggets.
Yeah, you just need to shove it down to fill the void, right? I think that's what it is. It's filling the void. Filling the void. And it's like,
and it's got an addictive quality to it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it's made of, what it is, as long as it fills the void, it takes the edge off for the next couple of hours. I'll just keep filling the void rather than, really tuning in. And honestly, if you probably let yourself get to that level of desperation, it's like that. Cause I know I can run some low blood sugar. Like if I wait too long to eat, then pretty soon I got the brain fog and I can't make any decisions. I'm like, somebody just feed me anything. Just put it in my mouth.
Yeah. That's it's a common thing, because what that happens when we are in our flow state. However, if we're not practicing getting in and out of flow states often, we're going to go into these zone states where you're just like in the zone, which are awesome. They're great. However, they might not be the best for you physically if it's for an extended period of time. I also think
that's irony. That's the irony about Bill Gates being a health advisor, because, he built his business like sleeping and eating underneath his desk because he was such a workaholic.
Well, and
like what kind of world do we live in where he's the one giving us
exactly health advice? And everything that comes out of him is of that nature.
Yeah.
And that's what you'll see. It's like energy follows thought, and thought creates story. Thought creates. Thought creates the experience. The experience gives us feelings. The feelings give us emotions. Those emotions give us thought. Energy follows thought. Actually, those emotions produce energy. And then that energy follows thought. And then it just starts all over again. So that's why when we get really clear about the things where we're rushing and we're trying to get it quicker than we kind of deserve it, right? Or that it's not even that we quicker than we kind of deserve it, but then quicker than, it's almost like trying to give birth to a baby before, 9 months, like trying to get, like, I'm ready for my baby at 4 months.
Well, and we do that. We do have scheduled C-sections. And that's why we have, we really do on the doctor's convenience. The doctor's like, no, I want to take a vacation on Friday. So let's schedule your C-section for Wednesday. And then the mom is like afraid to give birth and afraid of the pain, the numbing out piece, right? That's the other spiritual bypassing. I'm trying to adjust this cord here. And so it's gone. So, it's like numbing away from pain, filling a void, or productivity. It's like quota or whatever. And you can see there's two, like in that case, that example of the C-section, it's both. It's like the mom wants to avoid the pain. The doctor wants to, have the vacation or not be on call. And then you have, then there's another reason to make some money, because now she's got to have corrective surgery because she needs the whole mommy makeover of the tummy tuck, because the body couldn't sustain the trauma and it doesn't shrink back down as easily. I mean, obviously there's reasons we need to have C-sections that are medically necessary, but I think the US is like, I don't know, it's like one of the most dangerous developed countries to give birth in. It's like very dangerous to end up in a hospital giving birth. And there's no reason for it other than our medical system, like you said, the system and the way that it is.
Right. And then, I mean, really, it's truly messing with the natural process and cycle of things. And that's really what this is getting at. The fast food, hit it and quit it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It's messing with the natural process. And when we look at nature, it's got its process for a reason. But when we kind of mess with that process a little bit too much, it creates with what we're kind of dealing with, a strong lack of connection. And I think a strong lack of connection in the way we live life.
Just like the example with the with the fast food, with sexuality, with all of the things that we're rushing toward, and the ayahuasca trips, like the mushroom journeys, whatever. Obviously, there's a place for those things. There's a place for a quickie in the bathroom, but if that's what you're doing every day, you're going to have one very unsatisfied woman. But it can be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can get just a little something in, a little dose of pleasure for the day. But how is it very, just like you're not going to have 3-hour lovemaking sessions every day, because that's not practical either. You're not going to get stuff done. But where is that balance, that sacred balance? Again, whether you're going through the drive-through every once in a while, and now, you're cooking with intention, you're blessing the food, you're maybe mindfully shopping for it. These are the things, this is the spectrum of sacredness. And just because it's quick, I think it can still be sacred, but it's the intention with which you're engaging with it, right? I know.
Yeah. I think it also depends on what you're doing, right? And of course, some things, it's more like the attitude of fast food and the attitude of hit it and quit it, these terms, and the attitude of wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. So it's not just about getting something, it's not about like power and like the speed at which something is getting done, right? This is more about
having that personality, that persona. That's just
totally. And also, like, a great example is porn. Porn is a great example of that.
The most irritating example, because it does flood out the space for real connection and real learning. I don't necessarily have anything against porn for porn's sake. I think there's some beautiful porn that's made, but it's the way that most of it is made, consumed, used. It's really a shame. And there's a lot of unlearning and unwinding to do. And I know, like, for me, I could watch porn and on some level be aroused because, it's a sexual act or whatever. But when my marriage was really struggling and I thought, well, maybe this will help, it just turned me off even more because it was so inauthentic. And I just felt sorry for the actors and actresses, because I could feel the inauthenticity of it. And when things are really connecting with a lover, like, I need to take breaks. I need to sometimes be like, okay, like, just let me breathe it in for a few, let me just like let it saturate in, because I'm like, whoo, like my whole body's like ready to explode right now. I got to slow it down and savor, like, let me just breathe through it here for a moment and before we can start again, so it's like that, what a difference, being totally turned off with something you're watching to being like, okay, hang on, like, I need more savoring.
And I'll say more times than not, people who show up to the work and practice this idea of unwinding the fast food attitude, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, hit it and quit it, those who are really stepping in to do that work, you'll see that you'll start realizing where that energy is within you, and why you're rushing it. And as you take your time and slowing down, so like, you might have a really quick, like, rushing energy to eat or to brush your teeth or to take a shower, but like, take a moment to slow those things down, and use consent, use discernment, right? And also practice allowing, like, really allowing yourself to feel what you're doing, whatever action it is. It no longer becomes a quickie in the bathroom. It's all about right here, right? So if you're doing that work, and that work again takes time and wisdom and integration, you got to get back down to earth and like ground in, and you've done that, then you might see that the quickies in the bathroom have stopped, and the only time they're happening is a part of some grand, beautiful master plan of like paradise, and voila.
I know you said come back down to earth. I was like, I think I will. So
yeah, how does that land for you? What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think like when you say come back down to earth, I mean, it's the wind on your face, it's the smells. Like now I'm in the Caribbean, can you smell the coconut oil? Can you smell the warm breeze, the vegetation, the warm ocean on your toes, the beautiful blues, the white clouds? This is being in a body. This is what we're here for. Like, we're not here to meet deadlines and that all of that stuff. Of course, it gives us a certain kind of abundance that we can be grateful for, and then experience more of of this. And of course, you could be living on a deserted island and be pretty miserable too, because you don't know where food is coming again, or whatnot. But I just feel like, again, as we move into this North Node in Taurus and bring some of those more earthly values or sensual values, hopefully it will rebalance us a bit as a society and get us to slow down. And as awful as it really has been the last 2 years, it's not going back. We're not going back, for better or for worse, to the way the world was. It's just permanently changed now. So how can we move forward and make it even more pleasurable?
Yeah.
And I know that some of my best memories from 2020 are nature hikes, like breaking out, and you had organized the group hikes, and it was just like, all right, yeah, this is really living. And everybody could go because nobody was working. Nobody had it was like lockdown, nobody had anything to do. So that was a kind of a special moment. And I think on some level we realized that this is a kind of a pause in time, and it kind of sucks, but also, what do we have working for us and how can we use that? And now, work culture has shifted a bit. Like, people are remote working more. You are, I've been doing it for a long time anyway, but even more so now. And it works, and it leads to a better work-life balance. And then we also need our in-person time. And I think, you started movement medicine to get our freaking bare feet in the ground and community and be able to give hugs. And that's super important. And I know, after being in bed for 3 weeks, just going to drumming yesterday, even though I didn't get to drum, it was just like, just being there was such a big deal, to be with my people, seeing my people again.
Totally.
Being isolated for so long. So yeah, like, how can we be more in a body? And Dr. Chris Northrup was saying that today too, at the gathering on the beach. She said, you can be a very spiritual person and meditate every day and be into all these spiritual concepts, but we're supposed to be in these bodies. We're in a body. We're going to be spending most of our time out of a body. You're going to spend eternity out of a body. But right now, for this however many years, you're in a body. So be in your body. Like, we're trying to numb out, like you said, we're trying to numb pain. We're trying to numb pleasure. Even sometimes we feel like we don't have a right to feel pleasure. It's like, oh no, shut that down. That's too much. We don't want to accept compliments. We don't want to receive, but how can we, like, make it more enjoyable?
We got to start looking at the places where we are showing up with a fast food attitude. Honestly, that's a great place to start. Just look at where you're bringing in that energy, and see why, really, and invite those thoughts and feelings in, and those answers that come in of, like, why, and listen, because you might just notice that, like, that's a really old story that you don't really want to follow anymore, and that's why it's coming up in the first place. That's why it's even showing up as like something you're rushing in, or like you never thought you would always be eating fast food every day. You never thought that that would be you, but somehow it happens, right? And so instead of, just where you're noticing that part of you, we want to slow it down. So the first, and it's small little steps. It has to be little steps that where you can feel the shifts, and you can feel the change, and you can integrate. Again, we don't want the fast food attitude and slowing down.
Well, yeah. And just, your full moon ceremony that you do virtually, I missed several of them just because of the timing. I've always been going on, but I was finally able to make it, and I needed it. Like, I needed you know,
Oh, good.
to like transform. And I noticed a big shift already the next day, even though we weren't really necessarily going through the ritual, and more so like preparing for it and talking about it. And, you know, you had said that the full moon energy is 3 days before, 3 days after. That full moon, maybe because it was a full moon in Cancer and I have moon in Cancer, that was a whopper. But I felt like it had trails, like like trails, because I didn't even do the ritual, like full ritual, for the next 2 days, because I was still kind of like I don't know what's going on. But then it hit me. Then after 2 days, it hit me, and then the tears. And so it's always like Cancer full moon
Oh,
is usually
yeah.
like, for me, it's like paralysis, and then like then a break,
Mm.
and then tears. And then I did the ritual, right? And so that was kind of like the next layer, which I have my ashes and my teeth right
Yeah, I'm excited for our
it's
session.
right here by the
I can't wait
fireplace.
to show you guys what we're gonna do this month. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, so
And
I'm
see,
ready
like this is
for new moon.
this is a very beautiful example, what you just said here, of like what we're talking about. This is a really beautiful example. It's like you allowed, do you see how you allowed yourself? You didn't pressure like, oh, it's full moon, I got to do it now. Like, oh, full moon, time is on. It's like,
Yeah. Oh, I guess it's full moon time. The transit's happening now. I better. Yeah.
And you know, they're unfortunately, we have people and we have practices that are promoting that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying unfortunately is because we're only doing that to come back to this realization that it has to be an allowing.
Yeah.
Better with your feeling, you'll know when it's time to do the ritual. And when you actually show up and do the ritual, then that's where the magic is happening, because it's like, oh, you showed up. So when I allow, you actually show up. Okay, I'll allow more. Thank you. It's like your feminine is like, okay, masculine, you checked in on me first. I appreciate that. And then you actually showed up in the way that when I told you I wanted it, you came. This is the thing of you getting up to go to the beach in the morning. That's that conversation. So you're illustrating that really powerfully about, you know, unwinding the fast food mentality.
Yeah, I feel like anybody growing up in this culture is going to have to unwind that, you know, it's been sold to us that it was okay and that it's
Yeah,
glamorous.
and fast food is also franchise. Like it wants to reproduce.
Yeah.
It's not the mom and pop shop.
Right.
It wants to reproduce. It processes meat. It's not thinking about the quality. It's just going for speed and production. So that's okay. We're not saying that that's the evil force on the planet. I'm not saying it's evil. I'm saying it's okay, but it's imbalanced. It's imbalanced to the point where we are functioning with that mentality now more than we're unwinding and in shavasana. We're not doing enough shavasana to balance out that piece is the idea. And so when that happens, you're going to build, you're not going to build long lasting connections, whatever they are, whether you're looking to do that with a partner, or if you're looking for a job, this situation, or with a client or with family, your connections are going to feel very fast and very hit it and quit it, or there'll be these things built and then done.
Yeah. Well, because there's the people too that are, they just want to do shavasana the whole time and not actually do the flow.
Right. There's that side too.
They're like, I just want the integration. I just want all the bliss. Like, no bad vibes. Like, you're bad vibes. Stay away from me. That you're low vibe. Like, I can't handle any low vibes. And it's like, that's not what life is about, friends. Not on earth plane anyway. Like, you know, it's the equal mix. And it's like, I feel like a big part of my learning was to expand the window of tolerance of emotions. It's like I only allowed, and I think in this society we only allow like this much emotion, you know, especially for women. And then I started to feel had depressed, but it was like a numbed out depression. And once I allowed myself to kind of feel some of those low feelings, it's like, oh wow, my expander for joy just got twice as big too, because now I let myself move away from the numbness of not feeling. So now I have this big range, and I know you have a huge range as well, which is really impressive. And that's part of your work, is like bringing that out in other people. And I used to have a hard time even moving my body, because that level of self-expression felt way too vulnerable to let other people see how I might be feeling, or you know, by watching my body move, or even bringing attention to my body. And so this has been a big work in progress for me. So I'm not here to judge anybody's process, but just encourage, what can happen when we really start to do this growth work. And so don't run away from the work, like do the fucking work, because that's where the tolerance comes in. That's where you can expand your container for joy too. And when you're numbing out, you just are here and you can't go anywhere because everything is going to upset you and everything's going to trigger you, and you're going to be hermited into this little numbed out ice cube, right? Where it's all good vibes. But it's not, it's a lie. It's lying to yourself. It's not good vibes. It's not feeling it.
Right.
So I feel like there's that piece of spiritual bypassing right now, and fast food spirituality attitude, because people have been feeling so lousy for a couple years, and it's just like anything that I can latch onto. Okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to, just put parameters around my spirituality and everybody else's so that I can control that, and I feel, I feel like there's, and then we, because we're calling it spiritual, it's all pure, it's all good. And, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's just another version of
somehow spiritual has come to mean like above and light and all good. And it hasn't come to mean, like life, which is the way of living, and the spirit. It's hasn't really come. It doesn't, I don't know how that happened, but it's you just can't have, I have a saying that I love to say is like, you can't, most of us are obsessing with the crown and we don't want to get our hands into the ground. We're obsessing with getting the crown chakra. I don't care what what it is. It's the crown, or feeling like you're in charge, and you're just obsessed with getting there, and you're forgetting about the roots, like what got you there in the first place.
Yeah, I love that because, as I'm listening to you, when I feel like when my crown is open, I'm in flow, I have trust, I trust everything's going to work out. It's such a great feeling, right? Everything's just kind of happening. And if I could stay there all the time, I'd be like, I'll do earth school every lifetime, like sign me up. But it doesn't work like that. I fall out, shit happens. But when shit happens, what do? I go back to the earth. I'm like one foot in front of the other. Put some good stuff in my body, drink a green drink, take a bath, drink some water, like cry, like, move my body. Obviously, that's been part of my hardship right now, is because this is how I've gotten through the pandemic, is different types of movement. Even before then, I used to go to hot yoga every morning. My studio closed down, and then having a knee injury, and then surgery, and then COVID. And it's just like my movement just went out of, and I still don't know when it's coming back, because my knee is still not right, even though I'm walking again. So that's hard to deal with, but I'm finding other ways. I went to the beach. I can still go to the beach. I can let the sunshine in. I can put my bare feet in the sand, in the dirt outside of my patio next to my garden, these sorts of things. And so I love that, with going back to the root, to get back into that crown flow for sure. Well, I mean, now might be a good time to end, because I know you have your movement practice in the morning, and I have a little stuff to do after the show so that I can wake up again in the morning. I want to remind people again about your full and new moon. Your new moon is in person in San Diego. Your full moon is virtual, so people can sign up for that if you go to dilsculture.com, which is her website right there. That is going to help you release, transform, transmute, move through things. If you want a longer, more structured, not more structured, more frequent practice, Kirti's partner Shofar and I are doing another round of inclusion starting in February. So that's mind, body, trauma healing. And we go up to the stratosphere and then we come back down and we process. So we get the balance, we get both. And it works really, really well to help people move through stresses in life events. So I invite you all to check that out on my website, which is right there as well, natashaedwina.com. And anything else, Kirti, that you would
Oh,
add?
I think this was great. Thank you so much. Thank you all for showing up and listening to the end. Love and light to y'all. Have a beautiful, beautiful night.
All the vibes.